Anointments are important. They're essentially a couple free character levels. And a while back, I made a very successful video on some of the top cheap anointments. Unfortunately, they then shuffled things around, added a bunch of notables to the tree, added new oils, and that video isn't particularly relevant anymore. So today, I wanted to redo that. I wanted to provide an updated and more accurate list of 10 anointments that are both cheap enough that you'd feel safe using them in SSF, or planning to get it on the early part of your league start, but powerful enough that you wouldn't feel bad doing so. Almost none of these will be the perfect anointment for your perfect endgame gear, but they will offer a lot of value for the cost and be easily achievable. I've tried to cover a wide range of builds without being very generic, and I will be including a few honorable mentions at the end for things that I felt were a little too niche to actually cover in the bulk of the video. And in case some of the use cases aren't obvious, I'll mention some aspects of it or builds that might synergize with it when I talk about each. This is a top 10 list, but the order doesn't really matter. YouTube just likes things being top 10 lists, and I happen to have about 10 notables to talk about anyway, and I just moved the rest into the honorable mentions. If you want to help me out, the YouTube algorithm also really appreciates likes, so if this is helpful, be sure to leave a like on the video, sub to the channel, and then ring the bell to be notified whenever I upload. Especially if any of these help you with your league start, or something that you just added to your character in SSF, maybe even something that you use in one of the future events. On the other hand, if you like roguelikes, I've been covering a lot of roguelikes and roguelites on my second channel, 10 Gaming Thoughts, which just hit 100 subscribers, so I should have a custom URL soon. My next video will be a review of Hades, which is one of the best roguelites of all time, and you can check out my second channel down in the description below. Because there's so many notables, and so many reasons to pick a notable, this is far from a comprehensive list. But I've tried to make it diverse enough that you shouldn't go through the entire thing and think, well, nothing applies to my character here. It might not be the best, but it should at least be usable. And maybe someone will find something that doesn't work with any of these, but if so, there'll probably be a bunch of suggestions of other good ones down in the comments. Be sure to check those out. The basic criteria that I'm using are cheap oil costs, so no gold, no silver, and no opalescent this time. And also with a priority on things you wouldn't easily be able to path to and just pick up anyway. So without further ado, number 1, Combat Stamina. A well-rounded defensive node that is especially powerful because almost every build wants to splash a little bit of armor. You also get maximum life and then regeneration, so you have a good bit of recovery. It's not quite as strong as Golem's Blood, but it doesn't cost 2 golden oils. Instead, it's a mere black, verdant, and clear. And this will be a good thing to splash on a lot of melee builds and just life builds in general. Next up at number 2, we have a triple entry. Utmost Might, Utmost Swiftness, and Utmost Intellect. These give 40 of a stat and an 8% increase, which is great for attribute fixing early, or as a starting anoint off of a build that scales well off of it, such as an Inquisitor. You might hard path to Utmost Intellect, but you're probably not going down to Utmost Might as well. Utmost Swiftness costs Crimson, Teal, Sepia. Utmost Might costs Crimson, Azure, Amber. And Utmost Intellect costs Crimson, Violet, Amber. So all of them are very affordable. Next up, we've got Stormweaver, which is an excellent node that has a really awkward placement. It's especially good if you deal both cold and lightning damage, but it's usable even if you only deal 1. Doubly so if you're running skitter bots, where you can easily shock enemies without having to actually hit that hard. It costs a black, crimson, and sepia oil. At number 4, we've got Clever Thief, the one-stop shop solution for leech on attack builds. Unfortunately, it's hidden away in the mess that is the shadow starting area, so very often it's better to just anoint it. It costs an indigo, verdant, and clear oil. Then, if you do Ellie damage, and you're using Ellie Focus, or otherwise unable to use Stormweaver, I'd suggest number 5, Divine Judgement. It's a strong, well-rounded node that offers you 50% increased elemental damage, which is great for covering a lack of damage or an early build weakness, but it'll get weaker and weaker as your gear gets better and better. This one I actually covered in my last video, and it's largely been unchanged. It costs a black, teal, and sepia. Next up, number 6, Forceful Skewering. It's Impale Chance, Impale Effect, along with Overwhelm. The only problem is it's a little bit far for Marauders to reach, and a little bit too far the other way for, say, a Raider to reach. It's pretty good for Duelist, but everyone else probably wants to anoint it, and it'll cost you a Violet, Azure, and Verdant. Then we have number 7, Graceful Assault. I don't know if there's any node in the game that screams Raider anymore, which is why it's a little bit weird that's over in the Duelist section. I mentioned earlier that a lot of builds will splash armor, and this gives you a bonus to both armor and evasion to scale the defenses you're already going to be using, along with 30% increased onslaught effect. And for non-raiders, it's still good because it's a great way to work onslaught and kill into your mapping build. It costs 1 black and 2 violet oils. Then we have number 8, Wandslinger. Now, this one's often overlooked because people say, but I'm not using a wand attack. I'm a spellcaster. And that's the trick of it. It says damage while wielding a wand, not damage with wands. So this will increase spells. This will increase Corrupting Fever. It's fully generic damage. And it's especially good for a Spellslinger or a cast on crit wander or a Poet's Pen build, as it does have that attack speed. It costs a crimson and 2 teal oils. Now earlier I mentioned defenses and recovery, but nothing else on this list comes even close to the defenses and recovery of number 9, a dual entry for Infused Flesh and Vampirism. These are especially potent for builds that lack other recovery options, such as Toxic Rain. You recover your health based on the damage you take, rather than your life pool or the damage you deal. Vampirism is Violet, Teal, Amber, and is best if you can utilize the unkill portion, whereas Infused Flesh is Black, Indigo, Amber, and better when you don't get the kills yourself. Recoup is a great recovery mechanic, and it's super generic, so if your build is feeling a little bit sketchy when you can't get your health back and you forget to hit that life flask, because let's be honest, you're going to forget to hit it, then maybe consider one of these. And finally at number 10, True Strike and Heartseeker. Another dual entry because these two crit nodes work very well, but also slightly differently. True Strike is very good if you need the crit chance, whereas Heartseeker is better if you need the crit multi. Crit builds are popular, and it's a good way to fix either damage or crit chance. Heartseeker costs Crimson, Crimson, Teal, whereas True Strike costs Black, Crimson, Teal, making it a little bit cheaper. And now for a bonus lightning round, where I mention a few honorable mentions that didn't quite make it onto the list. Undertaker, which is a must-have for corpse builds such as VD, DD, and Cremation. Field Medicine, which adds life flask sustain, and is honestly great if you're ever in lab and you keep running out of life flasks. Ambidexterity and Twin Terrors, which are good for dual wielding but awkwardly positioned. Arcane Guarding, it's a great way to cap off your spell block and not always in the best spot. Annihilation, which is a better True Strike but only works on spells. Bannerman, a great way to scale auras that only apply to enemies. Blast Waves, an underrated notable for mind skills that also happen to deal area damage or overlap due to area of effect. Battle Rouse, which is the mana version of Recoup, like I talked about with Infused Flesh and Vampirism. And finally, Cloth and Chain, which give you a very efficient amount of resistance fixing along with some defenses. Hopefully some of these notables provide you a little bit of help, either in a future league start, in SSF, or maybe even in one of the events. And because there's so many different builds in Path of Exile, and so many different combinations of valuable things, what are some of your favorite cheap anoints? Are they already on the list, or is it something else entirely? I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. If there's any really good ones, I might even pin them or add them to a pinned comment. And finally, if you want a little bit of a TLDR on this entire video or a quick reference sheet, I'll have the 10 notables I talked about along with their oil costs down in the description. Thank you for watching. And again, a special thanks to my patrons and YouTube channel members. If you want to support me, you can do so by clicking the links down in the description below or on screen right now. You can also support by making purchases through my Nexus page. Or if you just want to chill and hang out, be sure to join the Discord. Again, links for everything are down in the description below. Thank you, and have a great day.